So I do want to take an official moment to wish all of you mothers in the room a happy Mother's Day, to acknowledge what I have, I've mentioned many times over the years here, or I guess most recently, that I did not have children of my own until the tender age of 45, when I inherited 3 stepchildren, who I love and adore, but it's, as I often say, no at parenting. I'm going to try to keep working with this, but it's wanting to cut out. So, just the commitment, that's the thing. You can't just stop. I was in another partnership for many years with no children, just greyhounds, and they never talked back. But there were a few times when not often, but I would just come home and be like, you know what? I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to take a bath and go to bed. The 9-year-olds don't operate with that. They're like, I need dinner. So it's just nonstop. So I do really, truly, we honor you who are mothers with small children or grown children. And certainly also those of you who've made a conscious, powerful choice not to be mothers. Those tend to be the funnest aunts and godmothers that's like, well, we stayed up until 2 a.m., head on home. See you next year. And also, making space and real room to hold those of you who've had every intention of being mothers and for whatever reason haven't been able to experience that and the pain around that. So Mother's Day, like all holidays, can be so loaded, right? And for the fellows in the room, well, I'll get to the fact that we all had mothers, and that'll take a little longer to talk about. But as Eric Butterworth reminded us this morning, this attribute of divine love, that the divine feminine that we, in our human mind might consider a feminine attribute, is really a part of the wholeness of all of us. I mean, women are certainly wise and strong, and men are certainly loving and compassionate and nurturing. So we're just honoring that influence in general, the influence and the power of the divine feminine and the divine love today. I wanted to just let you know, I was going to look up, Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, has highlighted those 12 powers, those 12 faculties that we all have, and one of those is love. So I was going to read the definition from him, and I found what the youth department sends out every week to their parents and their teachers. I thought you might want to know what the kids are learning about today in relationship to that, because it was like, oh, isn't that wonderful? Couldn't we all have been benefited from growing up and learning this stuff? First of all, to recognize the different ways that families occur, and that you might have a grandmother or even a male person that is in charge of your well-being and is caretaking and loving you. But so they're sharing with the kids today from Charles Fillmore's idea about love, that love is the harmonizing power and the power of attraction, that love heals, that love is, even if we aren't aware of its existence, love will love just because it is. Love will love for love's sake. Love is an inner quality that sees goodness, and using love and the power of wisdom together. Often love is referred to as a feminine nature and wisdom is referred to as a masculine nature, and we provide wholeness in our life when we activate those together. Loving yourself is important to being able to show others love. And they're doing some other fun things, but I was thrilled to see what they're discussing back there today. Charles Fillmore in The Revealing Word goes on to say that love is the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. Of all the attributes of God, love is undoubtedly the most beautiful. In divine mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. The great harmonizing principle, it is the great harmonizing principle known to humanity. And so, I'm not going to talk too much more about this, but as we dealt with the events last week, the tendency to go into a place of fear and anger and upset was certainly real. And I was grateful to have our spiritual teachings and our spiritual tradition to remind us that love is above that, and to hold that experience in love, not in a way that allows that to be okay, of course, but from a place of love, from that place where we acknowledge that there's really heart intelligence available to us that can guide our mind. That not only does that provide an opportunity for deep healing, but also provides inspiration for how to solve these issues. It's complicated, and it triggers a lot of stuff in all of us. And so I just invite us all to avoid the tendency, the call to fear, and to stay in the power of love. And I certainly don't have the answers. But I, for one, never thought 20 years ago we would have in our vernacular, there's been another school shooting. It's like, I would have never thought that, and the desensitization that comes around that. And so I'm holding that in my own heart, and being open, and I encourage you all to be open to what is yours to do to be part of the solution and the healing to that. It's not a swift transition, but we have been studying the untethered soul. How many of you were here last week? Because I heard there were some goats running around in here. David was talking about, he took this idea of who gets your goat and had some real funny goat pictures up that I just listened to it because I wasn't here, and I heard a lot of laughter. So I thought, well, I'm going to bring Mother Goat in. Oh, Mother Goat is so sweet. And so the idea of that, just to recap, is that we have these buttons, and he came up with a great acronym for GOAT, which is our grievances. Did I write it down? Don't tell me. Our opinions, our attachments, and our taboos. And so when people bump into that, we refer to that as sort of pushing our buttons or getting our goat. And Singer is saying, let them have it. Let them have it, because otherwise we're spending all this time nurturing and hurting and feeding our goats, and everyone's bumping into them, and it's kind of a non-stop process that's kind of annoying and takes our energy away. And he also talked about, David last week reviewed this idea of the samskara, which is from the yogic tradition. And I'm just going to read how David summarized that in his blog last week from the book. That Singer asserts that by experiencing the now and all that it brings, we allow our minds and hearts to remain open and free from the energy that can build up and block us from enjoying life fully. Further, Singer says that when we resist our current experience, we create what is referred to in the yogic tradition as a samskara, or unfinished energy pattern, that keeps us in bondage to our past. When we live with an accumulation of unprocessed energy, we create hell for ourselves and sometimes contribute to it for those around us. So even though they were created in the past, our samskaras exist in the present and can be stimulated by current experiences. When they are stimulated, the energy of the past experience arises. So it's really, when we talk about energy, we talk about everything ultimately as energy. At the essence of everything is energy. You, I, substance, all of creation. And by and large, we have interactions all the time with people, with experiences, and they just come in. So it's sort of this exchange of energy, and they just come and go. But those painful ones, we hold on to because, I don't know, for the variety of reasons, and hold tight to them and protect them, and you better not bump up against them. And so there's a lot of maneuvering that goes on. And not only that, but that energy block prevents the fullness of life energy from moving through us, yes? Because there's like this stifled energy. And so what he talks about this week in the book is let go or fall. Now, I know. If someone just said to me when I was in the height of really feeling some pain, just let it go. Like, oh, I'm going to let something go, and it might hit you. So I'm not making light of, that's the other thing to be aware of. The things that we have held on to and stuffed or protected, we did so because they were painful. And so when they come back up, there's going to be pain around them. And to let that be, but instead of the tendency to say, oh, I don't want to feel that, let it up and out. And there's going to be some, you're going to actually feel pain in the now about that. But once we've let it out, we're not at its mercy anymore. And really the topic this week, let go or fall, he goes into, if we begin to notice the places that we get disturbed, he says, actually very funny, that life becomes, what we decide is good is the stuff that doesn't disturb us, and what's bad is the stuff that disturbs us. And in this room, we have a whole variety of what that would look like, right? David said his taboo was a shopping cart, leaving a shopping cart in the, I was like, that's nothing. I do that all the time. Everybody knows the real taboo is do not leave your laundry in the dryer when it's done. I got that from my mother. So there's this whole variety of experiences that really what we're deeming as good and okay is what doesn't stimulate our stuff. And there's a whole fullness of life that's wanting to come through us and that we can experience, that if we can do some work with our stuff, that's really where the freedom is. Because we can't control, I know, this is a newsflash, we can't control other people or even experiences or how life is going to unfold. Life is going to unfold, and we get to decide what we do with it. It doesn't mean, and hear me say, it doesn't mean that we just let ourselves be in abusive or harmful situations and just let it go. No. I mean, there are consequences, and we get ourselves out of harm's way and we get some help, for sure. But the majority of us are dealing with lesser gravity of pain and issues, I hope. So no better of a day to discuss our samskara than Mother's Day. Now, I will have a lot to say about that. First of all, I was looking on, when I was on truthunity.net looking for Mother's Day things, what popped up was this little slide that said, the healing season, I wrote it down here, healing season. Take the time, consciously take the weeks between Mother's Day and Father's Day to heal your child wound, your parent wound. So that was good to hear. I was like, okay, other people have this stuff. Excellent. And of course we know that. And we love our mothers and our fathers, and we recognize at some core level that they're doing the best they can. I know that even what's available as what we know about child development and what we know about our own inner psyche stuff wasn't available when most of our parents were raising us. It was like, you're just lucky you're alive. Kind of. I mean, I was rolling around in the back of a Volkswagen, no seatbelt. Everybody was smoking, windows rolled up. Someone probably had a beer. I mean, it was just... So as we evolve in understanding how to handle ourselves and handle each other, we certainly have better opportunities as parents. And it's hard, as I said, because many of us have a hard enough time working on our stuff, right? And managing just this morning I had a huge fit about what I was going to wear. Huge fit. Now, in the meantime, I've got a person learning how to deal with life by going, why is Trish screaming about a dress? So not only are you having to manage your own inner struggle and your own inner pain, and also all the other things, the joys you want to do, sometimes you just don't want to be a parent. Can I just have a day off and not be responsible for anybody? And you're doing all that in the midst of trying to guide someone to be their best person. Great, right? It's a lot. So hopefully, if we get nothing else from the experience of parenting, which I know we get plenty, we get an experience of giving our parents a little leeway, a little break to recognize the challenges. But, and I did, when I read that and when I thought I would be talking on Mother's Day, I thought, for sure, I have no doubt that, and I've shared this over the years, that my relationship with my mother was by far the most challenging relationship in my life. And I loved my mother, and she loved me, would have done anything for me. And it was like, if you weren't my mother, we would never interact. Like, we don't have, how we show up in the world is so different. And I spent a lot of years being really mad about that and wishing she was someone else and thinking everyone else had the perfect goat mother. The day when I have to go get the Mother's Day card that was just, you're this and you're that and you're so perfect and you help me and you love me. My Mother's Day card needed this goat. I love you, Mom. She's okay with this. We worked it out. But, it was like, I know you love me. I know you're doing the best you can, and you annoy me sometimes. Could you comb your hair? So, and I'm not picking on my mom, really. I'm just acknowledging the varieties of experiences that we all have with that, and the guilt that we can feel. It feels really bad to have all this going on with your mom. And here's what Singer says, is those people that try us the most really are gifts to our spiritual development, because we get to figure out what's going on in us around that. And that's a hard lesson when you've got someone that's just not who you want them to be, in a crucial role like a parent. And I remember late in my mom's life, we had gotten through a lot of things, and I was back at that, just wanting her to be different. And she said to me, it's as if you can't accept who I am. You want me to be someone else. And that sort of got my heart open. It was like, well, first my head said, yep. But then, my goodness, is that the truth? No. I want you to be able to be who you are, and I want to be who I am in a healthy way. And so I began the work of letting go of who I thought she should be and who I thought I should be with her and all of that, and could really just be to what is. Was it perfect? No. Did some of the hard stuff go away? No. But I wasn't trying to maneuver her and maneuver me. I was just able to be with what was and to look at what I could grow from, right? And she certainly was willing to grow as well. So, what do I want to say about that? Here's what I want to say about that. For those of you who are mothers who are in your head going, oh my God, I'm screwing them up. I know I'm screwing them up. Is this the Mother's Day card they want? Oh no. You're doing the best you can and you're aware. And I was thinking of this last night, these parent relationships are so central to our being. Even, we're 50 years old and we're still dealing with some of it. And these are people that really, by and large, again, I'm not talking about if you were, seriously abused or neglected. By and large, these people are doing the best they can, and they love and adore us, and they had no idea some of the things that they were putting in as samskaras. Because family has that way of, we are in the most intimate relation. I mean, none of your coworkers know the stuff that goes down in your house, right? Or just and it's not even bad, but it's the good and the bad and the ugly and the good and the bad and the ugly. And we all get to be in that together. And so there's a lot that can rub up against us, and it can be challenging, just as well as it can be joyous. I mean, most of us have a place in our family where we know we can always be who we are, which is awesome. We were watching last night Our Planet on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched that. It's gorgeous. The cinematography is amazing. With little Hazel, who's 9, and Heidi, her mother. And there was this scene it's going to connect, hang on. With these flamingos, gorgeous scene of thousands of flamingos. And it honed in on the little baby flamingos, who are still white with just a little pink hue. They're so cute. And the mom came over and regurgitated some food in its mouth. And Hazel, who, if you even mention that someone vomited, oh, don't talk about it, says, Mom, would you do that for me? And without missing a beat, her mom says, well, if you really needed me to, I certainly would. After all, it's Mother's Day. And I thought to myself, that kind of sums it up. I mean, there are not many people who you would even consider asking to spit food in your mouth. And not many other than your mother who would consider doing it. And so there's a deep connection and intimacy that's happening, and it makes sense as to why some of the stuff hurts so much, doesn't it? And Singer encourages us, not only with our mothers, but with anything that gets us distracted to it, to let it go. And again, you can be with that however you need to be with that. I can tell you that I took 15, maybe 20 years to dive into it and to blame my mom and to be mad and to go to therapy, and it was all worth it. I'm not saying therapy is not a good thing, but it really came down to making a decision to let that story go. And there was an immediate sense of freedom. And so he encourages us to do it as soon as we notice something is poking against us, let it go. Because if we hold on to it and it gets all snuggled in, it gets harder and harder to bring back up and let go. And the other thing that we do then, if we don't choose to let it go, the fall that he's talking to is not obviously a literal fall, but here's the other thing that's very important, I should say, that in order to do that, we have to also be cultivating our sense of self, our sense of self with a capital S. So that part of us, as he discusses, that can witness all that goes on in us, that sees all the chatter that goes on, that doesn't get caught up in it, that can notice, oh, look at that, I'm having a whole conversation about something that happened 30 years ago, and I'm right here trying to talk to these people. So there's a place of witnessing, and that's a place of power. So we recognize that I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings, I am not my experiences. I have them, and they're meaningful, but there is that of me that can see it. And from that place, we have some power, right? But when we fall, what we do is we fall to the level of the thing, of the upset, and now we're in it. And now it's just us against the world or us against them. We're at that level. We've lost our centered seat of consciousness. Does that make sense? So he's encouraging us to, instead of going there, to let that go. And then we get to come up a little bit higher, and a little bit higher, and a little bit higher. So I love, he does a great job of demonstrating that for us. And the other thing that we need to be aware of is that the more we hold on to things, the tendency is to sort of shut our hearts down. And what we're learning and what we're talking about today with divine love, I've mentioned before heart math. I'm not going to have time to really talk much about it, and many of you know it. It's been around for years. But they're discovering like an actual intelligence to our heart that actually informs our brain. There's a whole network of things going on there. And really to recognize a deep sense of wisdom that comes from that then can inform our minds. And so it's important to keep our heart open to experience the fullness of life and the inspired wisdom that comes from our heart.